Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Bulan J. Up next, pressure points. Let's talk. So, in this particular conversation, the question at hand is, will the Baltimore Ravens stand up and endure the pressure of 2025, or will they wilt under that pressure? You see, I don't believe there is a team in the NFL who has as much pressure to win the Super Bowl, to go on and win the Lombardi Trophy, more than the Baltimore Ravens. I don't believe no team has that level of pressure. When you just look at the AFC, right, and you survey the top of each division, you have the Ravens in the North, the Chiefs in the West, the Buffalo Bills in the East, and the Houston Texans in the South. And you have some supplementary teams who could fill in those 5, 6, and 7 spots. Teams like the Bengals, maybe the Chargers, maybe the Broncos, maybe even the Steelers led by Aaron Rodgers. But I'm talking about teams who have a real expectation to win. And I think as it pertains to the AFC, all of the top of the divisions have put together rosters and are led by quarterbacks who should be able to get the job done, right? The Buffalo Bills have dominated the East for basically a half decade. The Chiefs have dominated the West for the entire Patrick Mahomes era, seems like. The Houston Texans snatched the division crown from the Jacksonville Jaguars and have refused to give it back. And then, of course, we have been the division winners running 2 years and possibly 3 in a row, right? And although all of those teams have what they need to win, I don't think any of them feel the pressure that we feel. You see, when it comes to the Chiefs, they already got 3 rings in the trophy case, so to speak, and they were in competition to win a 4th last season. So they don't have any pressure. Chiefs fans have been fed enough to last them a couple of seasons until they have a resurgence, which, hey, could be this season. When you think about the Houston Texans, it seems like they're ahead of schedule. CJ Stroud jumped in to the head of that Houston Texans organization and led them to the playoffs the last 2 seasons. They have done a good job putting a team around him. They paid attention to the wide receiver spot this season. They tried to rebuild the offensive line, and they have some top-notch edge rushers to support that defense and a really good back end. And so the Houston Texans are ready, right? I don't know how far they will go just yet, but they're ready. And then when you look at the Buffalo Bills, you know, there is a built-in excuse for Buffalo that Josh Allen doesn't have enough. That seems to be the sentiment, which is also the reason why they gave him the MVP last season. You guys remember the conversation. And then Baltimore. And of all of those truths, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have the most pressure. And I think there's 3 main pressure points. I think the first point of contention for the Baltimore Ravens, the first thing that's bringing that pressure is they're led by Lamar Jackson. You see, when you are early in your career and you're just trying to establish yourself, not much pressure, right? His first season, the rookie season, not a lot of expectations. After he won the MVP, all of the expectations skyrocketed. Now let's tell the truth. 2019 was not a Super Bowl team. I think he was way too early. That team was not fully crafted to go win the Super Bowl, but they did some great things that season. And really, the Super Bowl pressure ramped up in 2023. Lamar gets his contract. They have a solid team around him. They're trying to figure out if they have the right combination of wide receiver. And then 2023 proves all of those things out. Yes, Lamar Jackson was worth the contract. Yes, Zay Flowers is the real deal. Yes, Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews can carry the interior pass catching responsibility. The offensive line is good enough, not great, but good enough. And whoever you put at running back was going to be productive, right? And so that season we made it to the AFC Championship. So an expectation after adding a Derrick Henry was what? Oh man, nothing can stop us now. But we were a round short last season from the 2023 season, right? And so every year for the last 2 seasons, and I think even this season, we're going to be in the top 3 or 4 teams with Super Bowl expectations, right? And we've already heard those speculation, those predictions started to ramp up. And so I think that when you have a quarterback who is one or two in the league, I don't really care about that list of Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, and then Lamar. And I think I think it was Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, then Lamar. I don't really think that that really matters. I think he has played the best quarterback in the regular season over the last 2 seasons. And so I think that's the first point of pressure, right? I think that's where it starts. And I think that's why the crown on his head is heaviest, because when a team comes up short, the first place they look is at the quarterback position. Do they have the type of quarterback who can get the job done? Well, the answer for Baltimore is yes, we do have the quarterback who can get the job done. And in the last 2 playoff runs, some of the Baltimore Ravens' stumble has been off the arm of Lamar Jackson with some crucial interceptions and then a couple of other, untimely events that happened in those games. Now, let's be clear. Am I saying it's Lamar Jackson's fault? No, ma'am, and no, sir. What I'm simply saying is that's where we're going to look. We're going to look to who is the point man for that offense, right? We're dealing with a 2-time MVP. We're dealing with again, top 1 or 2 quarterback in the league. We're dealing with the best dual threat quarterback in the history of the NFL. We're dealing with a guy who just came off a historic season. And so we don't have any excuses at the quarterback position. So I think that's the first point of pressure. And I think that pressure will begin to mount. Now, will we stand up? I think the second pressure point for the Baltimore Ravens is the core. I think in times past, we've been able as a fan base and maybe even some of the media that's been favorable to the Baltimore Ravens, they've been able to point to holes in the offense or holes in the defense to kind of relieve some of that pressure. But when we look around this Baltimore Ravens offense and defense right now, we don't have any excuses. When you look at our offensive line, it's not elite. Let's be clear. The Philadelphia Eagles have the best offensive line in the league, and then the Detroit Lions, and then the Buffalo Bills. Those are the top offensive lines. I saw a stat or a report that the Baltimore Ravens would have a top 3 offensive line. I don't think so. I don't know so. I hope so, but I don't think so. But nevertheless, when it comes down to it, right? When it comes down to what we have in-house, Ronnie Stanley is a former Pro Bowler. Tyler Linderbaum is a former Pro Bowler. And I do think that Roger Rosengarten at some point has the potential to also be a Pro Bowler. Maybe not this year, but we have 2 steady pieces along that offensive line. You have a guy in Falele who has 19 games of starting experience. And then we have to see what happens at left guard. But we still have Pro Bowl level talent along the offensive line. When you jump into the backfield, one of the best running backs to ever do it, coming off a 1,900-yard season last season. And he was also a Pro Bowler. So, you got Pro Bowl along the line in the backfield. Lamar Jackson is an all-pro. Basically, should have been a 3-time MVP, but nevertheless, it is what it is. You go to the tight end room. Mark Andrews is a former Pro Bowler. Isaiah Likely has the potential to be a Pro Bowler. So we have that in-house. And then when you go outside to the perimeter, Zay Flowers is a Pro Bowler, right? Then you have part of that supporting cast. If I just skip Rashad Bateman, not to overlook him, but if I point to D-Hop, he's a veteran, a former Pro Bowler, just played in the Super Bowl. So when you look at the supporting cast offensively, no excuses. I won't say there's not some weak areas, but it's not many. When you jump to the defense side of the ball, Metabike is a Pro Bowler, right? Roquan Smith, second line of defense, Pro Bowler. When you look into that secondary, Marlon Humphrey, former Pro Bowler. Kyle Hamilton, Pro Bowler. Jair Alexander, former Pro Bowler. So you have really top-end talent at every level of the team. And so I think the core that's been built around Lamar Jackson is a point of pressure. You see, the better the team around the quarterback is, the greater the expectation. And then I think the third pressure point, okay? I think the third pressure point is history. History would say that when a QB and a coach have been together 5 years and they have not won a Super Bowl, that typically doesn't manifest. That's what history says. That's not what I'm saying, but that's just what the history says. And so the question has to be, will John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, and this Ravens team, will they get over the hump and get all the way? You see, because I think that in truth, I think there is a such thing as a Super Bowl window. I know EDC said he didn't believe in those things, but I believe that there is a Super Bowl window. That's why you see certain teams get to a Super Bowl, kind of like a one-off season. And when they don't close that deal, it's a long time before they get back. I mean, you take a team like the Denver Broncos, for an example. They won back-to-back Super Bowls in the mid-90s. And then it wasn't until the 2010s before they got back and won again. And that was after losing a Super Bowl where they were dominated. You take a team like the Seattle Seahawks, who I think, if I'm remembering correctly, went to the Super Bowl when Sean Alexander was the running back. And they did not get back to the Super Bowl until Russell Wilson and the Legion of Boom captured the chip in the 2010s. So there's many examples of that. You take a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, even, who have 2 championships in the last 7 seasons, but they got to the NFC Championship like 4 times in a row. Finally got to Super Bowl led by Donovan McNabb, didn't capture the ring, and it was a decade before they got back to win. And so I think that history is not on our side, and I think that our Super Bowl window is now, because I think this is the last iteration of this team. What do I mean by that? What I mean by last iteration, this is the last version of the Baltimore Ravens as we know it. And I'll get deeper into that on Monday, but there's going to be some guys who are really good players who will not be able to return next year just based on money. And so our time is now. And so the question I have for you guys is, will the Baltimore Ravens endure the pressure and come out on the other side with a victory? Or will we fold? Will we wilt under that pressure and end in shame, just like the last 2 seasons? So listen, let me know what you guys want me to know. I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.